Hello class, my name is Kayla Gooden, and I'm going to talk about my PowerPoint, Farming is Out and GMOs are in. So my first slide is about what GMOs are. They are plants or animals that have been changed using artificially formed DNA. GMO crops are typically manufactured in a commercialized facility and are commonly larger and more appealing than natural crops. Sustainability concerns that are involved with GMOs. Altering natural and sensitive ecosystems because GMO crops are stronger than natural crops. They can cause complete destruction of native vegetation, and there are multiple moral concerns to include modifying animals with DNA strand removal, hormone enhancement, and crossbreeding. Why were GMOs created? Many Americans think that genetically modified foods are a recent technology, yet the first GMO crops were produced in the 1980s. Farmers all around the world fight problems such as drought, fungus, and pests. More and more land has become non-arable, and it is said that food production throughout the world needs to double by 2050. That's only about 35 years away. GMOs became very beneficial when an increase in production is needed without all the necessary resources. GMOs can be grown in deplorable conditions, demanding less water, having a longer shelf life, and resisting natural threats. Many GMOs are created in commercialized farms. Organic farms are almost non-existent. The countries where organic farming is popular are Australia, Europe, and Argentina. Within the United States, most of the farmers in commercialized farms, and the farmers only make up about 2% of the workforce in the United States. The reason commercialized farming is on the rise is because of the desire for surplus and high profit. Commercialized farming has opened the door to climate-controlled facilities which can produce crops and animals year-round. In China, almost all of their farming is done in commercialized facilities. Feeding animals GM crops. I looked at a couple studies of the effects of feeding animals GMO-based crops. The effects of GMOs on humans are still unknown, but many studies have been conducted in which animals were fed GM crop diets, and then tests were performed on those animals. In a study where half a group of rats were fed GM crop and the other half a regular non-GM diet, and tests were ran, the test results showed in the rats fed only GM crop, they had significant changes in cells in their kidneys and their livers, two organs that filter toxins out of the body. These results suggested that the body's natural processes needed to change to process the GM crop. And in a similar study that was performed on livestock, the results showed different deformities in the animal's stomachs and digestive tracts, common with feeding animals GM crops. In that particular study, kidneys and livers were not tested. Sorry about that. So the question is, do consumers have rights when it comes to GMO foods? About 35% of the world's seeds are genetically modified, but the real question is, do consumers know that? In Europe, currently, they require GM crops to be approved before they are sold, and even before they're sold, they have to be properly labeled to specify that they contain genetically modified foods. In the U.S., the FDA has stated that there is no difference in safety concerns between GM crops and traditional crops. And currently, with that said, there is no standard upheld labeling products with GM crops or ingredients. The standard does not allow Americans to choose to avoid eating GMO-based foods. Many people don't think there is alternatives to GMOs that will produce the same yields, but contrary to that popular belief, there are. In the past, farmers commonly exchanged seeds, and they also naturally crossbred species of plants without adding or taking away cells from the organisms. This practice is common in sustainable agriculture. The importance of sustainable agriculture is to maintain and balance an ecosystem. It also preserves wildlife in a region, does not ruin the soil, and it all around reduces the emissions in that farming. Currently in Europe, seed exchanges and breeding throughout social networks are being implemented to bring back the old mentality. So many people think organic is, the best thing. You need to buy organic, eat organic. And the problem in the United States is there's a small amount of local farms left that are mainly organic. Most commercialized facilities sell genetically modified food. So the USDA does not allow a product to be labeled 100% organic if it contains any genetically modified ingredients. There are a few ways around this. If a product is labeled certified organic, less than 5% of the ingredients may contain GMOs, so about 95% of that product is organic, but 5% can be genetically modified. If a product is labeled made with organic, only 70% of that product must be made with organic materials, meaning 30% of that product can be genetically modified. The USDA has quite a few foods on their approved list that make it through the loophole of organic, such as non-organic cornstarch, and some pears and apples that can contain antibiotics that prevent death from a fungus. So if a person is really concerned about where their food comes from and if it is organic, one good way to avoid that is to buy local and know your local farms and to grow your own food. Local businesses are still a small percent of the market, but they seem to be on the rise, especially in my community. The problem with small farms is they have a very small surplus and they can't produce that much food. They typically can only serve a small portion of their community, and their prices tend to be higher due to the low surplus and better quality of food. Many schools throughout the United States try to move towards locally grown foods, but the problem is a lot of local farmers are not USDA certified. Therefore, many schools or even daycares cannot buy from them because they are not certified by the USDA. I know personally in my own town, they have a couple of local farms, and I'm involved in a sustainable community, and we tend to buy a lot of food from them, but we get them at a pretty discounted price due to us knowing them. But I definitely know their CSA shares are pretty expensive. So with that said, eating healthy on a budget is definitely hard. Many local farms are more expensive. One thing I have learned is buying when food is in season to save money. The reason being is if in the peak season, prices will be lower because the farmers have larger yields. Avoiding common GMO crops such as, but not limited to, corn, soy, zucchini, and squash. These are almost 90% of them will contain GMOs. Another way is to grow your own food and raise your own animals at your home. I know in Colorado Springs, you can raise up to 10 fowl of any type and have 2 hoofed animals up to 100 pounds. I currently have 6 chickens, and I consume and sell their eggs. So that's one good way of eating healthy on a budget. And that's it. Thank you guys for listening.